I'm prepared to bet that you're not actually tired. What you're feeling inside is a dullness. And there's a reason for that. And I think that's because men don't experience enough sort of excitement and risk in their lives because modern life has removed all traces of that. When was the last time that you actually felt truly alive? And I don't mean vaguely content. I mean like alive. That feeling, you'll probably know it, is where there was the wind in your face and your attention was being narrowed to a single point. And if you didn't live in this country, you would maybe have some sun on your back and you were stepping into something completely unknown, stimulating, and deep down you had this feeling of, hey, game on boys, let's go. For in that moment, you remembered that you were built for so much more. And if you know that feeling, when was the last time you experienced it? And if you don't know it, grab a pew, fellas, let's talk about this. There's a famous line that is attributed to Alexander the Great that I think came through to most of us through the movie Die Hard, where it says, Alexander wept, for there were no worlds left to conquer. Now, I don't know that that's the exact quote of how it was, but it's how it's remembered in pop culture. Now, whether he said it or not doesn't really matter that much. The sentiment stirs up something absolutely ancient within us because his whole life was about expansion into the unknown. But most men that I know understand why Alexander may have wept. And there's a while ago that I did a video, you can look it up in the back catalogue, where it talks about the Roman Empire and why men think about it daily. It was a bit of a meme doing the rounds a couple of years ago, but underneath the humour of it, there was definitely a seriousness. Because I think guys were articulating and recognising that they sensed that they were built for mission, but unable to express it satisfactorily in the modern world as it is expressed these days. And I don't know whether any of you have come across a book by John Eldridge. He wrote a popular book about 10, 15 years ago, and it was called Wild at Heart. I think it's been updated a few times since, but he had an interesting quote in it where he said, "Deep in his heart, every man longs for a battle, an adventure to live, and a beauty to rescue." Now, we can strip away the sentimentality of that and how it's delivered, but he's right. There is something in us that does not thrive in the safety and sedation of this modern world. For when we look at it, it's soft, it's domesticated, it's feminized. And for those of us who are fortunate or unfortunate enough, whatever way you want to look at it, to be in corporate life, our daily dose of adventure probably doesn't reach much beyond walking to level 3 to the coffee machine. Or maybe if you're feeling really exotic, you might call the Liberian distributor to their offices in Monrovia. And almost every day when I'm there underneath the strip lights, I think to myself, what am I doing here? What are any of us doing here? Beam me up, Scotty. And I'm not saying that any of this is bad. Of course it's not. We've all got to find a way to earn our daily crust and try and apply our skills and talents to whatever work we can find. But it jars with me because I once used to be a soldier. And I remember a life where I never counted down the hours to go home. I had comradeship and connection in buckets. And the mission actually was the day. And that was often adventure enough for everyone. There was a younger colleague of mine a couple of weeks ago was bemoaning the transition from student life to corporate life. And I was on the way out to work and I sort of laughed with her and said, you got about another 50 years left of this ahead of you. I think she was a bit demoralised at that. But I then added half jokingly that I was glad that I was the age that I was because it means I didn't have that long left, and that was a blessed relief. Now, there's an element of dark humour in there, but it rattled me as I thought about it in the car on the way home. This is madness. Here I am locked into a system that barely allows me enough momentum to reach escape velocity. There's all the taxes, the mortgages, there's lifestyle creep, which you're always trying to keep on top of. And then to top it all off over the last 5 or 6 years, there's the crazy levels of inflation. So whether you work for yourself or whether you work for the man, the treadmill hums on. And despite this, for many men who live in quiet desperation, the dream of escape never quite dies. But I would suggest to them that it is a mirage. It's nothing more than a daydream. So what are we supposed to do when we are faced with this harsh reality And it's a tough reality. Well, one of the key things I'm going to suggest here is that we find ways to pepper our lives with a little bit more adventure now. Because adventure is the only medicine that I know that reliably awakens and restores something deep in men. It's a reconnection to yourself, to your body, to your limits. And maybe if you're lucky, you'll even reach a quiet mind while you're doing it. And you'll especially reach it if you leave your phone or other digital tethers behind, as we often discuss on this channel. Do you know, you don't need much to have an adventure. A tarp, a flask, maybe a sleeping bag. And if you're lucky, maybe a forest down the road. Or maybe something that I might do is have a motorbike and buy a ferry ticket. I don't need 5-star accommodation, but what I do need is uncertainty, I need friction, and I need the outcome to be somewhat unguaranteed or not guaranteed. And if I do even book this ferry, I might book the first night's hotel if I'm feeling generous to myself, just to at least point me in the right direction and give me a target to get me going. But after that, I don't book anything. I don't care. I go where the road takes me. And I just love how those conversations spark up just outside maybe a coffee shop. Maybe you're in the car park. You'll always find someone to come chat to you. And if you have a bike, usually it's easy. People are always interested to know where you're coming from or where you're going. Maybe the bits I don't love so much, but they always add texture to the adventure, which is the rain coming in sideways or I remember one time driving down a road and literally there was smoke for about 100 meters and I couldn't see anything through it. There will always inevitably be something that breaks or something that goes wrong. But actually that's when the story gets interesting, because whenever you have the breakdown or the detour or that wrong turn that turns into something better, those are the moments that actually test you and reveal your true self to you. Those are the moments that really wake you up and get the adrenaline buzzing a little bit. And there's no doubt about it. You come back sharper, you come back calmer. Now, I want to be clear here. I'm not advocating any form of recklessness. I'm not telling you to abandon your family. Don't quit your job. Don't do something foolish to prove a point. But that restlessness that you're feeling inside you, that unsettled hum, it's not mental illness. It's instinct that is constrained, and you got to find a way to let it out. Think of it this way. The world was not opened up by tame or domesticated pen-pushing men seeking comfort. It was opened by those who felt an itch that they couldn't ignore. I always enjoy reading about Ernest Shackleton ever since I travelled one time to South Island in New Zealand. There's actually an interesting statue to him there in Christchurch. And he wrote a series of diaries, and some of the last entries are the most interesting. And in his very, very last entry, he wrote these words: "I do not regret this journey. We took risks. We knew we took them. And therefore, we have no cause for complaint." What a way to end. Now, as probably if you know the story, he didn't quite make it. But he was able to say, we took risks. We endured hardship. We helped one another. We bowed to Providence. And we did our best right to the last. That is living to the full. So what does this mean for you? Well, I would challenge you that you've got to go out and try and find your soul again. You've got to break the sedation of modern society. You've got to find ways to interrupt the apathy that you're probably feeling. Do something that causes you to have a frisson of fear down your spine. Something where the outcome is not fully controlled. Something that is going to require you to exercise your strength, your judgment, and maybe test your endurance. And I will say, it doesn't have to cost a fortune, but it must cost you comfort. Because you were not made to be a permanent dweller of climate-controlled zones, or to be emotionally anaesthetised underneath strip lights. For me, I find my adventure behind the bars of a motorbike. Where do you find yours? So please do leave a comment below and let me know what you get up to find your adventure and to add a little bit of risk and excitement into your life. And also as well, if you like what we're doing here, please give me a thumbs up, and a subscribe would be much appreciated, as it always helps the algorithm and it definitely encourages me. Catch you in the next one.